Good morning, Stacy Stokes here with American Dream TV in Portland, Oregon. We are in the Laurelhurst neighborhood. It's a historic neighborhood with many beautiful homes. And my guest today is Eric Wheeler, an architectural historian, and he's going to take us on a tour of some of these homes and teach us about architecture.
Stacy, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I do research and guide architectural walking tours all over Portland. I have some favorite neighborhoods. I will confess Laurelhurst is one of them, for no other reason than amazing variety of architectural styles, from the arts and crafts to the period revivals, and what I'm beginning to call Portland fusion architecture. We've got a great example behind us here. When the massing and some of the elements are very colonial, central entry, evenly spaced windows, classical columns, and yet it also has elements that are very craftsman. Can you see the clinker brick up on the chimney, which look like broken, misshapen, discolored reject bricks? So it's this interesting blend, which is sort of part and parcel of what makes Portland so interesting.
What are the dates of the building in this neighborhood?
So Portland it was already the most important port city in the Pacific Northwest, but after 1900, particularly after 1905, the city grew exponentially and grew along the streetcar lines coming across the bridges that were built 20 years earlier.
Who was moving to this neighborhood and building homes here in the early 1900s?
The growing middle and upper middle class in Portland. So these were professional people, these were white-collar people that could work in downtown Portland and walk just a few blocks to catch the streetcar that would take them to work, and they could come home at night on the streetcar.
Take a walk and see what else we can find in this neighborhood?
Let's go have a look.
So Eric, I actually sold this house a few years ago. It's one of my favorite sales ever. I just love the architecture of it, and it's just such a beautiful house. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about this house?
Built in 1914, of this interesting kind of blend of very formal, kind of colonial or classical, as well as very craftsman. And as you walk in, there is that kind of formal feel. There's a formal foyer with the living room to one side and the dining room to the other, central hallway, central staircase.
Okay.
Those are kind of quintessential elements of a colonial revival. Look at the modillions, or you could call them joists, that are projecting out underneath the cornice. We see that on the main floor as well.
To me, I feel that that's a craftsman.
It's craftsman, exactly. It's the hallmark of the craftsman. And so you wouldn't consider this a bungalow. It's much more spacious, much more massive than a bungalow, but it has also those elements that were kind of the hallmark of the craftsman tradition, which was this simplicity, utility, and beauty. So the fancy name for this carport, basically it's just a canopy that provides an opportunity for automobiles to come up, discharge the passengers, and then enter into the formal living space. So the fancy name for this is porte cochere.
Okay.
But basically it functions like a carport. This porte cochere is something you would see in a high-style Victorian mansion.
Okay.
So it seems a little bit out of place in this more informal setting, but it doesn't look like a Victorian mansion. It looks like something that's very modern. So one of the things that I find so captivating about leading walking tours in Portland is that you see these wonderful sort of distinctive things like the horse rings, kind of part of the Portland whimsy culture, which we find so charming and what has drawn so many people to Portland.
That's exactly why I love Portland, and have enjoyed living here and selling homes here for years. So thank you so much for joining us today on American Dream TV. Thank you, Eric, for that great lesson, and we learned a lot, and it was super fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time on American Dream TV.